up, everybody? So, you like how I say everybody? Like there's a whole bunch of people? Maybe one day. So anyways, we're going through Matthew, and I was reading through the Transfiguration, and I'm not going to do it justice, and I know I'm not going to do it justice because this is one of those things that is a hugely symbolic, hugely meaningful section of Matthew. The Transfiguration in and of itself is saying very significant things. Spoiler, I'm not going to try to attack all of them. I'm not going to even try to attempt all of it. We're just going to go through because it's about reading the Bible and digging a little bit deeper. There are lots of videos out there, depending on your background, tradition, where you are in Christianity. I know some people really like Mike Winger. He's got something on this that I started watching. I thought it was pretty good. There are a lot of people out there that do huge lessons on the Transfiguration. That's not going to be this. This is just reading through that section and seeing how it fits into the rest of Matthew. So, just expectation setting right off the bat. So here we go in chapter 17. And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John his brother and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah, talking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He was still speaking when, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When his disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were terrified. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise and have no fear." And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. And as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Tell no one the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." And the disciples asked him, "Then why do the scribes say that first Elijah must come?" He answered, "Elijah does come, and he will restore all things. But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they pleased. So also the Son of Man will certainly suffer at their hands." Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them of John the Baptist. So Jesus goes up onto the mountain with Peter and James and John. He leads them up a high mountain by themselves. And it says after 6 days, right? And so it says that right before this, Jesus has revealed his death and resurrection. The Pharisees and Sadducees had demanded a sign. He warns the disciples about this. Jesus goes to Caesarea Philippi, and he tells the disciples that he's got to go to Jerusalem, right? So he's leading up to this moment of the Transfiguration, and then it says, and after 6 days. Now, it could be a literal 6 days. I don't really know how I feel about the whole literal day thing. I don't know. Because here I think it's also pointing to a symbol of 6 days. And so I think ultimately that oftentimes in Genesis and the Old Testament, the physicality of something matched the spiritual symbolism. For instance, when a blessing was given, it was a blessing. Jacob and Esau, when he gives Jacob the blessing, he physically gives him a blessing. He says it, he puts his hand on him, and it's very important that it be the right son, which is why he checks. The physicality of it matters here. So for that reason, I think it probably was 6 days later, and that timing was intentional. So it says, after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John. You go up the mountain, and he's transfigured before them. And it's interesting because Elijah is shown here with Moses. And it's kind of confusing because Elijah is being shown here. But John the Baptist was a symbol for Elijah. Moses, a mediator. There are many patterns that Jesus fulfills that are similar to what Moses does, being associated with water, always going to the sea. An idea of being a mediator between man and God. These different things, like even the symbol of feeding people and comparing that to manna and needing water, and Moses striking the rock, right? In this blasphemous moment, striking a rock and water flowing out, and Jesus, his side being pierced on the cross and water coming out. Like there's all kinds of comparisons between Jesus's patterns and Moses. And so there are many people in the Bible that have a fragment that points to Jesus, but none of them are a complete embodiment of the Christ. That's only the Christ, right? Even the Samson story, as a deliverer of Israel and bringing relief, Samson is a terribly flawed person, but he's used as an instrument, right? And like the strength and power and punishment that Samson doles out is pointing to a judgment that is going to happen. Like all these different things add up. So it's Moses and Elijah show up. And then what's interesting, after Elijah shows up, they say, then why do the scribes say the first Elijah must come? So to me, I would think, well, Elijah, I just saw Elijah, right? That's part of it. But I think there's something more substantial. And in the prophets, they talk more about Elijah coming. I think it's Malachi is a big section where it talks about Elijah coming. And Jesus says, I tell you that Elijah has already come. And they did not recognize him, but they beheaded him, right? So I was just seeing an interesting conversation about this as well, where it was an argument over whether John the Baptist was literally Elijah or not, like if he was Elijah, like the same thing. I tend to not believe so. I would be interested in your thoughts about that. But this right here shows me that Elijah in the Old Testament was taken up to heaven. He didn't die. John the Baptist was beheaded. That kind of, to me, sets them apart as separate people. But then also the next time Elijah comes, you know, there's a second coming of Christ. There's going to be the second coming is the judgment day, right? And John the Baptist is an Elijah figure that showed up. So I'd be interested to hear people's thoughts on that, actually. But the Transfiguration, one of the key things that I think it does is it's leading up to this moment where Jesus is talking about fulfilling the prophecies ultimately by dying on the cross. In fact, when he says, take up your cross and follow me, he's actually, you know, when you think about it, he's predicting the manner in which he's going to die. And so this idea that it's a leading up to this moment where Jesus is revealing himself. First, Peter acknowledges that he's Christ. Then the Transfiguration, the disciples see this, and it's a stamp from God that he's Christ. It's an authority that is being shown here. And as they're coming down the mountain, you know, he's saying all the other prophecies as well, that Elijah coming, like that's happened, right? So he's pointing out the fulfillment of prophecy. And this is probably the most definitive, you know, eyewitness testimony of these disciples that there's actual, like, they witnessed the authority of Jesus as the Son of God, as the Christ, right? And that is ultimately what Jesus gets convicted of, is blasphemy. The death sentence that Jesus gets is blasphemy from chief priests and Pharisees that should know what God looks like and how people are to worship God. And they, in fact, blaspheme. They charge Jesus with blasphemy, hang him on a cross, and murder him for blasphemy in an act of the ultimate blasphemy, which is killing the Son of God. It's just I was going to say fantastic. It's just this like horrible illustration, actually, of this cathartic cultural rejection of God in the cross, which becomes the ultimate victory of Jesus Christ and God through Jesus Christ. And it's just amazing. So anyways, there's the Transfiguration. That's all I've got for today. But if you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Let me know down below what your favorite thing about the Transfiguration is, or some interesting thing that you've heard about it. I'd love to hear more about that. It's something that I kind of chew on, but I don't want to get too far into the teaching side. I just kind of wanted to go through that. But like and subscribe these videos as they come out. And that way you'll catch them all, and we can study the Bible together. And like, these are supposed to be self-paced Bible studies. So hopefully you're picking one section of the Bible going through, and it's helping you at least a little bit. But anyways, like and subscribe. I'll catch you soon. Peace.